Hello everyone, welcome to another video. It is me, Desiree, and I'm working on bringing my plants back inside. You know, it's cooling down at night and the nighttime temperatures are kind of fluctuating. Like the other night it was 39 degrees and then the very next day the low was 52. So the plants, I think I'm just gonna bring them in now. If it's warm outside during the day, I'll put them back out. But for the most part, I think they're back inside the house until next year. But I wanted to show you the plants that I had outside all summer long, how they did and what I did to them before I brought them back in the house, and a couple of mistakes I made as usual. So the first one here I want to show you is this Hoya. This is a Hoya Australis. I'm pretty sure it's a Hoya Australis. It wasn't listed on the container, but I have a Hoya Australis and it has the same exact growth habit of one, but I kept thinking it was also something else. But correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure this is a Hoya Australis. So I found this at the grocery store and I had never seen one like this. You know, I've only seen Hoya Australis before in smaller pots, a little more viney, smaller leaves, but this one, I don't know, it just has these big giant leaves and it really caught my eye. The leaves are so thick and hard. I don't know, I just felt like I had to have it. I instantly regretted buying it, of course, because anytime I impulsively buy a plant that I already have, I always regret it. And I did regret buying this plant. So what ended up happening was I put it outside just to get it out of the house. Like, I wasn't intentionally trying to keep this outside. I just took it out there to water it and I never brought it back in. And it did great. You know, it did get some direct sun throughout the day, and I think that might be what has caused these super dry patches on the leaves. Maybe a little sunburntness, you know, but it gives it character. It also put out this long stick vine thing. This only appeared in the last couple of weeks. I feel like it showed up overnight, of course. It pumped out a bunch of leaves and it did really, really well outside. I do really want to repot this because the soil is god awful, and I'm not usually like overly picky with soil. I tend to just keep the plants in the soil it came in at the store, but this looks really, really bad, especially when it's dry. I watered it the other day just so it could be a little more manageable, but I do want to repot this one just because it looks really ugly when it's dry, you know? But anyway, this plant never got any pests outside, never had any issues, but I did just spray it down with the hose before I brought it in because you know it was covered in dust. The next two little babies that lived outside, ooh, I almost tipped it over. Oh, my heart. Okay, these Jade plants. And I don't know if I've ever like shown these in a video. So I've had these since last summer. Last summer I got all into succulents. I was like, I'm gonna get really into succulents, and I bought a ton of them. Some of them I still have, and some of them are doing really well. Some of them are no longer with us. But one thing I did do at the end of the summer last year, I bought a ton of them at Lowe's when they were half off or more. And I bought these hanging baskets. Ugh, they were so beautiful. And now when I see them at the store, I'm like just waiting for them to go on clearance because I think I'm gonna buy another one. I swore off of them, but they're just so beautiful, and there's so many different plants in the basket that you could take apart and pot up, you know? But I didn't end up doing that. I left them in the pots in semi-low light, which I probably shouldn't have done for the winter, but most of the plants from there did not survive, but the Jade did. And I potted them up in their own little things, and I didn't think I was really gonna love this plant, to be honest, just because, I don't know, it just doesn't appeal to me. But once I took it out of the basket and put it in its own little pot, I fell in love with it. It has like an actual like bark to it, so it looks like a tree, but it's also succulent leaves up here. Just a great plant, very adaptable, very easy. It can take a lot of drought, and it lived outside all summer long. Of course, these also got a bunch of direct sun. They didn't get any scorching or any real color on them whatsoever. And I like them a lot. This is another one of the plants I only took outside to water, and then I was like, I think they'll like it outside, and I just left them, and they did really well. I did hose these down as well. One of these, oh look, it's this one right here. This one had a bunch of spider webs on it, and they weren't cobwebs, you know, like an old abandoned web. It looked like a ugly Black Widow web. You know how they make the ugliest webs ever? Like they put no effort into the web. All they're trying to do is catch something. And I sprayed this down with the hose, but there's a little bit of the web there. Because for some reason, spider web is like impenetrable. You know, you could blast it with the hose, it will just stand there like this, moving around in the water. It's crazy. But I really like these. I'm gonna just leave them in the window until it gets too cold and I'll move them down. But I think these are cool. I'm glad I kept them. And I was gonna pot them up together, but it was just like, it was too big. But those are good, I like those ones. Again, no pests or anything like that. I did watch, who was it? The Thrifted Planter. She did a video or like a short or something talking about things she does to her plants before she brings them in. And she said she repots all of her plants before she brings them back in. She said the big ones, she just kind of does a little bit with the soil, but all the small ones, probably like this, she would repot them all. And I thought that seems like way too much, to do, but I get it because you never know. Like I said, this one had a ton of spider webs on it. There could be things in here. There could be roly-polies in here. There could be aphids hanging out in here. Like anything could be living in the soil now. A centipede, you never know. So I guess that is a really good tip, but not one I'm particularly going to do. But if it looks like it needs to be repotted, I probably would have done it. But for the most part, I didn't do that, but I did check them over very, very well. The next plant that lives outside every single summer is my beloved Croton. I know people pronounce it differently, Croton, Croton, and Croton. I just say Croton, I don't know, it's what I've always done. I love this plant. I love it, and I know not a lot of people like the Croton. I have an opinion on that, and I feel like it's gonna be kind of mean and a little controversial. And I actually shared it in a video once, but I cut it out because I thought like, that's so mean to say. But I have a theory on why people hate the Croton so much. Maybe one day I'll share it if I'm brave enough, but I feel like it's a little mean. Anyway, I love this plant. This is one of my first plants I ever bought, and it's still going strong. It doesn't have as many colorful leaves as the ones coming out now for the fall do. Like they're super yellow and orange. It did have some leaves like that, but they've all since fallen off. And every year I put it outside, it grows a bunch of new leaves. I think this plant does need a lot of light in order to get those super colorful leaves, but I like the way that it looks. I'm happy with just the veining of the leaves looking a little yellow, a little red, a little speckled. I think it looks really, really pretty. And I think it looks a little ficus-esque. You know, the stems are barky, the leaves are big, flat, and green. I love this baby. It needs a lot of light though, so right when it's warm enough outside, I throw it out, and it does get direct sun throughout the day. It does well with anything, but it does like a lot of light. And this one does like to be watered a little more often than I was expecting. It will wilt. The leaves will wilt when it needs water, but I say don't wait till it wilts to give it water because one of the leaves will inevitably fall off. This is a plant that I did spray down with Captain Jack's insecticidal soap because for some reason this plant is just very prone to spider mites. You know, I get them when they're in the house, when they're outside, and I just like to look it over every once in a while, spray it down, and you know, it's good to go. I did give this one a spray down with the hose as well, just to get dust and dirt and all that kind of stuff off. But this plant lives outside every single year. It's still in the same pot that I put it in when I first got it, and I love it. This is one of my favorite plants. I know not a lot of people love it, but he's one of my special babies. Okay, there were two more plants that lived outside. One is this, and I don't think I've shown this since the initial video where I showed it in a haul, I think. This is called a parachute plant, and I'm sure there's another name for it. I'll find it and I'll put it on the screen here. I feel like my hair, I could feel it flat on my head. It's driving me nuts. Anyway, I put this outside because I got a comment that just said, put that plant outside. So I did. I left it hanging on the back like wrought iron door, and it got a lot of light throughout the day, a lot of afternoon direct sun, and it did so well. I feel like this thing got so much longer than it initially was. It did really, really, really well outside in the heat and in the bright sun. It's just a really cool, like weird plant. Again, this is one I did regret buying at first because I was like, where the heck am I gonna put that? And then one of you said, put it outside. But where I live, it's gonna be way too cold to keep this out year round, so I'm gonna bring it in. but I definitely am gonna put this back outside come spring where it's nice and warm again. So this has really interesting leaves. I mean, there's probably an inch between each leaf here, but the leaves grow in little pairs opposite each other and they're hard as a rock. Hard as a rock. Like a rock. And then having this plant outside, it needed a lot of water. I probably watered this thing 20 times this summer. It seemed like at least once a week I was putting this thing in the little bucket of water, and it did great. It does awesome. I'm kind of nervous to bring it back inside just because it does so well with the heat and the sun. But I'm gonna find a good spot for it, and I love this thing. It's so cool. I did regret buying it, but now I love having it. I love this plant a lot. I have one more plant to show you. This isn't my plant. It didn't live outside here, but I'll tell you in a sec. Let me grab the plant. Look at this beauty. Okay, so this isn't my plant. This is my grandma's plant. She told me to take it home, and I am so nervous about this because look what she has grown this plant into. Look how beautiful it is. This is a Dieffenbachia, and we bought the same plant at the same time because I remember it very well. It was the first trip I'd ever taken to Home Depot to actually buy plants. We had taken my grandma, and I turned to my boyfriend and said, I'm gonna get really into plants, and then this happened. So we bought the same Dieffenbachia, and I did mention it in videos. It quickly died. I had no idea how to take care of it. I didn't know what it wanted, but my grandma's just continue to thrive and thrive and thrive. Like, look how beautiful it is. It's gotten so big, the leaves just seem to get bigger and bigger. I still think it looked really good, but she said it was dying, so she put it outside, and she has an east-facing porch, so it gets a lot of morning sun. And the plant just absolutely loved it, and I'm so nervous about it. She told me to take it home because she didn't have a space for it to bring it back into the house, and I have a space here in my home, but I'm very nervous because mine completely died. I don't know what happened to it. So I asked her how she was taking care of it, how she was watering it and stuff, and fingers crossed it makes it through the winter because I will be so sad if this plant doesn't survive, but I'm going to do my best. This one, all I did was spray it down with the hose because it was, you know, dusty. It was living outside, but sprayed it down with the hose. It's doing really well. And now it's gonna live in my front room in the window. So hopefully it does well, but if you have a Dieffenbachia, give me all your tips, please. Thanks much. But that is it. Those are all of my plants and a special guest that lived outside this summer. If you had some of your plants living outside, let me know which ones they were, how did they do, and what do you do to your plants before you bring them in. I never thought about repotting them, but some of these I kind of might like poke around in there or at least pull the plant out and look to see if there's anything creepy crawly living in the soil now. But for the most part, I tend to just spray them down with some insecticidal soap from Captain Jack's, spray them down with the hose, and I feel like they're good to go and bring them back in the house. But yeah, that is it. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe so you don't miss my next one. And I will see you later in another video. Goodbye. Thumbnail. Time to do a thumbnail.